The Grand Assembly Hall of Galactic Naval Academy Station Harmony buzzed with excitement as 800 cadets from 47 different species took their seats. The massive chamber floated in the station's central hub, its transparent walls offering a breathtaking view of the stars beyond. Today marked the beginning of the final semester, and everyone knew that assignment announcements would follow the opening ceremony. Marcus Webb sat in the middle section, his human frame noticeably smaller than most of his classmates. At 23 years old, he was one of only 12 humans currently enrolled in the Academy's 800-year history. His dark hair was cut short according to military standards, and his brown eyes scanned the room with quiet interest. Beside him sat Kelvin, a Centauri whose blue skin shimmered under the hall's lighting. The two had become close friends during their 3 years of training. "I heard they're changing the assignment protocols," Kelvin whispered, his voice carrying the musical quality common to his species. "My nest brother said something about Death World postings." Marcus nodded but said nothing. He had heard the same rumors circulating through the dormitories for weeks. Death Worlds were the most feared assignments in the Galactic Navy. These were planets where the environment itself seemed designed to kill anyone foolish enough to land there. Toxic atmospheres, extreme temperatures, deadly predators, and geological instability made them nearly impossible to colonize. Most species considered a death world posting to be either a punishment or a death sentence. Admiral Trishkal entered through the main doors, and the room fell silent. The Vexorian commander stood nearly 3 meters tall, his crystalline skin reflecting light in rainbow patterns. He had served in the Galactic Navy for 60 years and commanded respect from every species in the assembly. His 4 eyes swept across the gathered cadets as he approached the central podium. "Cadets of the Galactic Naval Academy," his voice boomed through the chamber's sound system. "We gather today to begin your final preparations for service to the Galactic Council. Most of you will graduate in 6 months and take your places aboard ships and stations throughout known space." The Admiral paused, and Marcus noticed the slight tension in his crystalline features. Something important was coming. "However, I must address a serious matter that has troubled the Council for some time. In the past cycle, we have lost 3 promising young officers to accidents on Death World colonies. These losses are unacceptable. After extensive debate, the Council has implemented a new policy effective immediately." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Marcus leaned forward slightly, his attention focused entirely on the Admiral. "All assignments to Death World colonies are now voluntary only. No cadet will be forced to accept a posting to any planet classified as Class 8 or higher on the danger scale. Those who do volunteer will receive significant hazard bonuses and can refuse the assignment at any time without penalty to their service record." The assembly erupted in relieved chatter. Cadets turned to each other, their various forms of communication creating a symphony of clicks, whistles, words, and telepathic bursts. Marcus heard a Delphian cadet 2 rows ahead say a prayer of thanks to their water goddess. A group of Thorian cadets behind him celebrated with their traditional chest-beating gesture. Kelvin grabbed Marcus's shoulder with one of his 3-fingered hands. "This is wonderful news. No one will have to suffer those horrible places. I heard about Caraxus Prime. The survey team barely lasted 4 days before they had to evacuate. Can you imagine being forced to go somewhere like that?" Marcus smiled slightly but remained quiet. His mind was processing the Admiral's words carefully. Around him, the celebration continued. For most species in the galaxy, Death Worlds represented everything they had evolved to avoid. The Centauri came from a planet with gentle weather and no large predators. The Delphians evolved in peaceful ocean worlds. The Thorians had underground cities that protected them from their planet's occasional storms. Even the tough Vexorians came from a world where the greatest danger was other Vexorians. Admiral Treshkol raised one of his forearms, calling for silence. "I understand your relief. This decision was not made lightly. We value every life in this academy, and we refuse to send our people into unnecessary danger. However, we must still maintain research outposts and colonies on some of these challenging worlds. They contain resources and scientific opportunities we cannot ignore. Therefore, we need volunteers who understand what they are accepting." The Admiral looked across the sea of faces. "The hazard bonus for Death World assignments has been increased to triple standard pay. Rotation periods have been shortened to 6 months instead of the usual 2 years. Medical support will be on standby at all times. We are doing everything possible to make these assignments safer for those brave enough to accept them." A Thorian cadet in the front row raised her massive arm. "Sir, what kind of cadet would actually volunteer for such duty?" Admiral Treshkal's expression softened slightly. "That is an excellent question. We hope that some of you will find the challenge appealing, or perhaps the financial benefits necessary for your families. but we will not judge anyone who chooses safer assignments. Your value to the Galactic Navy is not measured by how much danger you willingly face." The chamber fell into thoughtful silence. Marcus could feel the collective relief in the room. Every cadet present had just been freed from their worst nightmare scenario. No more would they lie awake at night fearing a Death World assignment. No more would they have to prepare mentally for potential deployment to a planet that might kill them before they even left their landing ship. "Are there any questions?" the Admiral asked. Marcus felt his hand moving upward before he fully realized what he was doing. Around him, cadets turned to look. Kelvin's eyes widened in surprise. In a room of 800 beings, Marcus's raised hand was the only one visible. "Yes, Cadet Webb," Admiral Treshkal said, recognizing him immediately. There were few enough humans in the academy that each one was memorable. Marcus stood, aware that every eye in the chamber was now fixed on him. His voice was calm and steady when he spoke. "Sir, I appreciate the Council's concern for cadet safety, but I need to mention something that might be relevant to this discussion." "Go ahead, Cadet." "I'm from Earth, sir. It's classified as a Class 12 Death World. The silence that followed was absolute. 10 moments in an hour would make a sound. Then the chamber exploded into chaos." Cadets turned to each other in shock and disbelief. Voices rose in a dozen different languages. Someone dropped their data pad and the clatter echoed through the noise. The assembly dissolved into complete disorder. Admiral Treshkal attempted to restore calm, but his voice was drowned out by hundreds of simultaneous conversations. Marcus remained standing, uncertain whether he should sit back down or wait for permission to speak further. Beside him, Kelvin stared with his mouth slightly open, a gesture of shock among Centauri people. "You never told me Earth was a death world," Kelvin said, his musical voice strained with confusion. "You never asked," Marcus replied simply. "I thought everyone knew. How would we know? Humans have only been part of the Galactic Council for 30 years. Most of us have never even met a human before coming to the Academy." Admiral Treshkal finally managed to activate the chamber's emergency silence protocol. A low harmonic tone filled the space, triggering an instinctive quiet response in most species. When the noise subsided, the Admiral's 4 eyes fixed on Marcus with an expression that might have been concern or curiosity. "Cadet Webb, please remain after assembly for a private discussion. Everyone else, you are dismissed to your afternoon classes. We will address this matter appropriately." The cadets filed out slowly, many turning to stare at Marcus as they passed. Some looked frightened, as if they had just discovered they had been sitting next to a dangerous creature for 3 years. Others appeared fascinated. A small Delphian cadet actually moved to the opposite side of the corridor when Marcus walked by, her large eyes wide with fear. Marcus followed Admiral Treshkal to a private conference room near the assembly hall. Commander Oryx was already waiting there. She was a Valtorian, a species known for their logical minds and efficient problem-solving abilities. Her gray skin and sharp features reminded Marcus of the mountain rock formations back home in Colorado. "Sit down, Cadet Webb," Commander Oryx said, gesturing to a chair that adjusted automatically to human proportions. "We need to understand something. Did you know that Earth's Death World classification might affect how other cadets perceive you?" Marcus settled into the chair. "I knew Earth was classified as dangerous, man, but I didn't think it would matter much. I've been here 3 years, and no one seemed concerned before." Admiral Treshkal folded 2 of his forearms, a gesture of deep thought among Vexorians. "That is because your planet's classification was not widely known. When humans joined the Galactic Council, there was discussion about whether to publicize certain details about Earth. The decision was made to include the information in official databases, but not to emphasize it during first contact protocols. Why would you hide something like that?" Marcus asked. Commander Oryx leaned forward. "Because we did not want other species to fear humans unnecessarily. Fear creates barriers to cooperation. However, we may have created a different problem by not being more transparent." "What happens now?" Marcus asked. "Now we deal with the chaos you just created," Admiral Treshkal said, though his tone was not unkind. "By tomorrow morning, every cadet in this academy will know that humans come from a death world. Many will have questions. Some will be afraid. We need to manage this situation carefully." Commander Oryx activated a holographic display that showed Earth rotating slowly in the air between them. "Tell us, Cadet Webb, how dangerous is your home world really? The classification system ranks planets based on multiple threat factors. Earth scored high in almost every category." Marcus looked at the familiar blue and green sphere, feeling a sudden pang of homesickness. "I can only tell you what it's like to live there, ma'am. We have predators on every continent. Some of them are big enough to kill a human easily. Lions, tigers, bears, crocodiles, sharks. We have snakes whose venom can stop your heart in minutes. We have spiders and insects that carry diseases. The two officers exchanged glances. Admiral Treshkal's crystalline skin flickered with orange hues, a sign of concern. But it's not just the animals, Marcus continued. Our weather can be extreme. We have storms called hurricanes that flatten entire cities, tornadoes that pick up houses and throw them like toys. We have places where the temperature drops so low that exposed skin freezes in seconds, and other places where the heat can kill you in hours without water. We have earthquakes that crack the ground open and volcanoes that bury towns in ash and lava. Commander Oryx made notes on her datapad. Yet humans not only survive on Earth, they thrive. Your population numbers in the billions. How is this possible? Marcus thought about how to explain something that seemed so natural to him. We adapt, ma'am. We learn the patterns. We know when hurricane season comes, so we prepare. We know which snakes are dangerous, so we watch where we step. We build our homes to withstand earthquakes in some regions and floods in others. We don't fight the planet. We live with it. That sounds exhausting, Admiral Treshkal said quietly. My people face challenges, but nothing like what you describe. Do humans not wish for a safer world? Sometimes, Marcus admitted, but Earth made us who we are. It taught us to be careful and observant. It taught us to respect nature and work together. My father used to say that easy lives create soft people, and Earth doesn't allow soft people. The meeting continued for another hour. Marcus answered questions about Earth's oceans, its disease organisms, its plant life that could be as dangerous as its animals. He told them about poison ivy that caused painful rashes, about mushrooms that could kill if eaten, about bacteria in water that could make you sick for weeks. By the time Marcus left the conference room, word had spread throughout the entire station. When he entered the cafeteria that evening, conversation stopped. Every eye followed him as he collected his meal and looked for a place to sit. Kelvin waved from their usual table, and Marcus felt grateful for his friend's loyalty. Everyone is talking about Earth, Kelvin said as Marcus sat down. Professor Yilmoth has called an emergency seminar tomorrow morning. She wants to educate students about your home world. Great, Marcus said, poking at his food. Now I'm going to be the Death World guy. Is it really as bad as you told the Admiral? Kelvin asked, his voice quiet. Marcus looked at his friend. Kelvin, I grew up in Colorado. When I was 10, I went camping with my family. A black bear walked right through our campsite in the middle of the night. We had to stay completely still in our tent until it left. When I was 15, I was hiking and almost stepped on a rattlesnake. Last year, before I came to the academy, my town had a wildfire that forced us to evacuate. We watched the mountains burn from 50 kilometers away. Kelvin put down his eating utensil and stared at Marcus with something between horror and amazement. And this is normal for humans? This is just your childhood? Pretty normal, yeah, Marcus said with a slight shrug. Most of my friends have similar stories. It's just part of growing up on Earth. The next morning, Professor Yilmoth's emergency seminar filled the largest lecture hall in the academy. The elderly Morphean professor stood at the front, her tentacles moving in graceful patterns as she spoke. She had taught xenobiology for 40 years and knew more about different species than almost anyone in the galaxy. Students, we are gathered here to discuss something that should have been addressed when humans first joined our community, she began. I have spent the night reviewing Earth's complete planetary assessment, and I must admit that I am both fascinated and deeply concerned. A holographic image of Earth appeared above the lecture stage, slowly rotating. Red markers began appearing across its surface, each one indicating a major threat category. Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world, which places it among the most dangerous inhabited planets ever discovered by the Galactic Council. To put this in perspective, Caraxes Prime, the planet we discussed yesterday as too dangerous for mandatory assignments, is only a Class 11. Gasps echoed through the lecture hall. Marcus felt hundreds of eyes turning toward him where he sat in the back row. Let us examine the specific threats, Professor Yilmoth continued. First, predatory fauna. Earth hosts thousands of species capable of killing an adult human. The largest land predators weigh over 400 kilograms and can run at speeds exceeding 50 kilometers per hour. The oceans contain predators over 6 meters long, with teeth designed specifically for tearing flesh. Even small creatures like certain spiders and snakes possess venom that can cause death within hours. A Delphian student raised her webbed hand. Professor, how do humans protect themselves? Do they live in sealed cities like we do on dangerous worlds? That is the remarkable part, Professor Yilmoth said, her tentacles curling with excitement. Humans live openly on their planet. They build simple structures with minimal protection. Many humans regularly venture into wilderness areas for recreation. They call it camping or hiking. They do this voluntarily, for enjoyment. The lecture hall erupted in confused murmuring. The concept seemed impossible to most students. Why would anyone choose to put themselves in danger? But the fauna is only the beginning, the professor continued. Earth's weather patterns are extraordinarily violent. The planet experiences rotating storm systems called hurricanes and typhoons with wind speeds that can exceed 300 kilometers per hour. These storms can be over 1,000 kilometers wide and last for weeks. There are smaller vortex storms called tornadoes that can appear with little warning and destroy everything in their path. Professor Yilmoth pulled up images of hurricane damage, and the students sat in stunned silence. Entire cities reduced to rubble. Trees stripped of branches. Buildings torn apart. The planet also experiences extreme temperature variations. Some regions regularly reach temperatures of 50 degrees Celsius in summer and drop to minus 40 degrees in winter. These are not rare events. They happen every year in predictable cycles. A Thorian student spoke up, his deep voice rumbling through the hall. Professor, what about geological stability? Surely the ground itself must be safe? I am afraid not, Professor Yilmoth replied. Earth sits on multiple tectonic plates that constantly shift and grind against each other. The planet experiences thousands of earthquakes every year. Some are powerful enough to level cities. There are also over 1,500 active volcanoes on the planet's surface. Eruptions can bury entire regions in ash and lava. Marcus watched as his classmates processed this information. Some looked sick. Others appeared angry, as if they felt betrayed that this information had been hidden from them. A few seemed curious, leaning forward to study the images more closely. Then there are the microscopic threats, Professor Yilmoth continued. Earth hosts an incredible variety of bacteria and viruses. Many of these organisms evolve rapidly, developing resistance to treatment. Humans live in constant contact with potential disease. Their immune systems must fight off infections regularly, sometimes multiple times per year. What they call a common cold would hospitalize most species in this room. How do they survive? Someone called out from the middle of the lecture hall. Professor Yilmoth's tentacles settled into a pattern that indicated deep thought. That is the question I asked myself all night. The answer is both simple and profound. They adapt. Human bodies are incredibly resilient. Their immune systems are among the strongest we have ever studied. But more importantly, their minds are adapted for constant threat assessment. They learn from childhood to read their environment, to recognize danger signs, to prepare for disasters they know will eventually come. The professor looked directly at Marcus. Cadet Webb, would you be willing to share your perspective with the class? Marcus felt his stomach tighten, but he stood up. Sure, Professor. Tell us, how did you learn to survive on Earth? Marcus thought for a moment, trying to find words that would make sense to beings who had never faced such challenges. We learn from our parents and teachers, like everyone does, but we learn different things. My father taught me which plants were safe to touch and which ones would hurt me. My mother taught me to check weather reports before going outside because a sunny day could turn dangerous in hours. In school, we practiced earthquake drills and fire drills. We learned basic first aid because accidents happen and help might not arrive quickly. Were you ever personally in serious danger? Professor Yilmoth asked. Several times, Marcus admitted. Once I was swimming in a lake and got caught in a current. I had to swim parallel to shore until I could escape it, just like my swimming instructor taught me. Another time I was hiking and heard a rattling sound. I froze immediately because I recognized it as a rattlesnake warning. I backed away slowly and found another path. These situations happen. You deal with them and move on. A Centauri student stood up, her blue skin pale with stress. But don't you live in constant fear? How do you sleep knowing there are so many things that could kill you? Marcus smiled slightly. We don't think about it that way. Fear is useful when it makes you careful, but it's harmful when it stops you from living. Yes, Earth is dangerous, but it's also beautiful. We have forests that take your breath away, mountains that touch the clouds, oceans full of life and color. We don't spend our time being afraid. We spend our time being aware. Professor Yilmoth's tentacles rippled with what might have been approval. This is what makes humans unique among Death World survivors. They do not merely endure their planet, they embrace it. The seminar ended with more questions than answers. Students crowded around Marcus as he tried to leave the lecture hall, bombarding him with curiosities about Earth. Some wanted to know if he had ever personally fought a bear. Others asked about human diseases and whether they could catch anything from him. A few simply stared as if seeing him for the first time. Kelvin helped Marcus escape through a side door. They walked quickly toward the dormitory section of the station, but the questions followed them through communication channels. Marcus's personal device buzzed constantly with messages from classmates and even students he had never met. "This is going to be my life now, isn't it?" Marcus said, silencing his device. "At least until something else interesting happens," Kelvin replied. "But I think this might take a while to blow over. You essentially told everyone that you are walking proof that death worlds can be survived." That afternoon, Marcus received a summons to Commander Oryx's office. When he arrived, he found both the commander and Admiral Treshkal waiting for him, along with two officials he did not recognize. One was a slender Voltorian woman with silver markings on her gray skin. The other was a bulky Kronar male whose species Marcus had rarely encountered at the Academy. "Cadet Webb, thank you for coming," Commander Oryx said. "Please meet Council Representative Valtara and Survey Captain Bruntok. They have traveled from the Central Council Station specifically to speak with you." Marcus saluted and took the offered seat. His heart was beating faster than normal. Having council officials seek him out could not be a good sign. Representative Valtara spoke first, her voice carrying the precise pronunciation typical of her species. "Cadet Webb, your revelation yesterday has created quite a discussion at the highest levels of the Galactic Council. We have been reviewing Earth's classification files and comparing them with our current Death World policies. We need your help with something important?" "Of course, ma'am," Marcus said, though he had no idea what help he could possibly provide. Survey Captain Bruntok leaned forward, his massive frame making the chair creak. "We have a problem with Caraxes Prime. The planet has resources we desperately need, and the scientific opportunities there are extraordinary. But we cannot keep a research team on the surface for more than a few days. The environment defeats them. We have tried 7 different teams from 5 different species.
All have failed."
"What kind of environment are we talking about?" Marcus asked. Commander Oryx activated a holographic display. Caraxes Prime appeared, a green and brown planet covered in dense vegetation. Class 11 Death World. Dense jungle terrain with aggressive fauna, unpredictable electrical storms that can strike with almost no warning, carnivorous plant life, and extreme temperature shifts between day and night. The day side reaches 45 degrees Celsius while nights drop to near freezing. Marcus studied the rotating planet carefully. What happened to the teams that went down? "The first team was attacked by a pack predator within 12 hours, Survey Captain Bruntok said. "The second team lasted 3 days before an electrical storm damaged their equipment and they had to evacuate. The third team encountered carnivorous vines that infiltrated their shelter. The fourth team made it 6 days before heat exhaustion forced their withdrawal. The others had similar problems." Admiral Treshkal's crystalline skin flickered with orange concern. "We believe the problem is not the planet itself, but our approach to it. Every species we have sent there treats Caraxes Prime as an enemy to be fought. They build heavy shelters, carry weapons, and try to dominate the environment. It never works." Representative Valtara looked directly at Marcus. "After hearing about your experience on Earth, we believe humans might have a different approach. We would like to send you to Caraxes Prime for 30 days. You would be alone, except for emergency extraction capability. Your mission would be simple: survive and document your methods." Marcus felt his breath catch. They were offering him exactly the kind of challenge he had dreamed about since joining the Academy. But 30 days alone on a death world was serious. Even on Earth, experienced survivalists rarely stayed in true wilderness for that long without support. "I understand this is a significant request," Commander Oryx said, reading his hesitation. "You would have complete support from orbit. Medical monitoring, emergency extraction within 15 minutes, and supply drops if absolutely necessary. But we need to see if a human approach to Death World survival is truly different from what other species attempt." "When would this mission begin?" Marcus asked. 2 weeks, Survey Captain Bruntok said. "That gives you time to study all available data on Caraxes Prime and prepare whatever equipment you think you need. We will provide standard survival gear, but you can request anything else within reason." Marcus looked at each of the officials in turn. They were watching him carefully, waiting for his decision. He thought about his father's words from years ago, spoken during a camping trip in the Colorado mountains. "Son, nature is not your enemy. It is your teacher. Respect it, learn from it, and it will show you how to survive." "I'll do it," Marcus said, "but I need complete freedom to make decisions on the ground. If I think something is safe, I need you to trust my judgment even if it looks dangerous from orbit." "Agreed," Representative Valtara said immediately. "This mission is about testing human methods, not forcing you to follow protocols that have already failed. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of preparation. Marcus spent hours studying every piece of data available about Caraxus Prime. He watched footage from previous expeditions, noting where teams made mistakes. They built heavy shelters that the storms destroyed. They carried large weapons that made the wildlife more aggressive. They fought against the environment instead of working with it. Marcus made a list of equipment he wanted to bring. It surprised the supply officers because it was so minimal compared to what other teams had requested. He wanted basic tools, water purification tablets, rope, a simple knife, lightweight weatherproof clothing, and a few comfort items like coffee and books. "This is all you want?" the supply officer asked, a young Delphian who seemed concerned. Previous teams brought mobile shelters, plasma weapons, force field generators, and enough food for months. And they all failed, Marcus pointed out gently. "I need to travel light and adapt to what I find down there. Heavy equipment just gets in the way." News of Marcus's mission spread through the academy like wildfire. Students debated whether he would succeed or become another casualty of Caraxus's Prime. Some thought he was brave. Others thought he was foolish. A few believed he was doing this just to show off. The night before his departure, Marcus sat alone in his dormitory room, going through his equipment one final time. Everything fit into a single backpack that weighed less than 20 kilograms. He checked his water purification tablets, tested his rope for weak spots, and made sure his knife was sharp. These simple tools had served humans well on Earth for thousands of years. They would serve him well on Caraxus Prime. A knock on his door interrupted his thoughts. Kelvin entered, carrying 2 cups of something that smelled like the Centauri version of tea. "I thought you might want company," his friend said, sitting on the opposite bunk. "Everyone else is either avoiding you because they think you are crazy or bothering you with questions. I figured you could use some peace." "Thanks," Marcus said, accepting the cup. The liquid was warm and had a pleasant sweetness to it. "Are you worried about me?" "Terrified," Kelvin admitted. "But I watched all the footage from your preparation sessions. I saw how you studied that planet like you were trying to understand a friend instead of fighting an enemy. Maybe you really do have a better way." Marcus smiled. "Earth taught me that you cannot beat nature. You can only learn to move with it. Caraxus Prime is not my enemy. It is just a place with its own rules. I need to learn those rules and follow them." The next morning, Marcus boarded the shuttle that would take him down to the planet's surface. The entire academy seemed to be watching. The mission was being broadcast live across multiple educational channels throughout the galaxy. Millions of beings would witness whether a human could truly survive what had defeated so many others. The shuttle descended through Caraxus Prime's thick atmosphere. Marcus watched through the viewport as the jungle canopy came into view. It was dense and vibrant, stretching in every direction like a green ocean. The shuttle landed in a small clearing the previous teams had used. The moment the door opened, Marcus felt the wall of heat and humidity hit him. He stepped out onto alien soil for the first time in his life. The air was thick and smelled of vegetation and moisture. Sounds filled the jungle around him, clicks and chirps and calls from creatures he could not yet identify. The shuttle lifted off behind him, and suddenly Marcus was alone. He spent the first few hours simply observing. He did not try to build a shelter or establish a camp. Instead, he walked the perimeter of the clearing, studying the plants and looking for animal tracks. He noticed where water might collect during rain. He observed which direction the wind came from most often. He watched how the light filtered through the canopy and tried to predict where the sun would be at different times of day. Back in orbit, Commander Oryx watched the video feed with Admiral Treshkal and a team of observers. "He has been down there for 3 hours and has not built any defenses yet. Should we be concerned?" "Let him work," the Admiral replied. "This is why we sent him, to see a different approach." That night, Marcus built a simple lean-to shelter using branches and large leaves he found nearby. It was not fancy, but it would keep him dry and allow airflow to prevent overheating. He positioned it with its back to the prevailing wind and near enough to the clearing edge that he could see approaching danger, but far enough into the trees that he was not completely exposed. As darkness fell, the jungle came alive with new sounds. Marcus sat near his shelter, not trying to sleep yet. He needed to understand the rhythms of this place. Around midnight, he heard something large, moving through the undergrowth. His heart rate increased, but he remained calm and still. A creature emerged into the moonlit clearing. It stood nearly 2 meters tall, with 6 legs and a thick armored hide. Its head swiveled back and forth, and Marcus could see multiple eyes reflecting the dim light. This was one of the apex predators that had terrified previous teams. Marcus did not reach for a weapon, because he had not brought any plasma rifles or force field generators. He simply sat very still and watched the creature. It approached his shelter, Clearly curious about the new presence in its territory, Marcus could hear its breathing, heavy and rhythmic. Then he did something that made every observer in orbit hold their breath. He spoke to it. Not in any language the creature would understand, but in a low, calm voice that carried no aggression. "Easy there, big guy. I'm not here to hurt you. Just passing through your home. We can share this space." The creature tilted its head, processing the sounds. Took another step closer. Marcus remained seated but made himself appear smaller by hunching his shoulders slightly. He avoided direct eye contact, which many Earth predators interpreted as a challenge. After what felt like an eternity, the creature huffed once and turned away. It walked back into the jungle, leaving Marcus unharmed. In orbit, Survey Captain Bruntalk was stunned. That should not have worked. That creature attacked our third team. Why did it leave him alone? Because he did not treat it like a threat, Admiral Treshgull said quietly. He treated it like another being that had every right to be there. Days passed and Marcus fell into a routine. He woke with the sun, spent mornings gathering safe water from a stream he had discovered, and used afternoons to explore and document the plant life. He found edible fruits and learned which plants to avoid by watching what the local herbivores ate. He tracked weather patterns by observing how certain plants reacted hours before storms arrived. On day 7, one of the feared electrical storms hit with tremendous force. Lightning struck all around the clearing and rain poured down in sheets. Previous teams had tried to shelter in their reinforced structures and watch the storms pass. Marcus did something different. He had noticed that the electrical activity seemed to follow patterns, striking higher ground and metal objects. So he had positioned his shelter in a slight depression and kept all his metal tools wrapped in insulating material. The storm raged for 6 hours, but Marcus stayed dry and safe. He even collected rainwater in containers he had woven from plant fibers, ensuring he would have clean drinking water for days. By day 15, something remarkable happened. Marcus woke to find small gifts near his shelter. Fruits he had not collected himself. A pile of dry wood perfect for starting fires. He realized that the local wildlife had accepted his presence and some species were even helping him.